Listen up, because I'm about to shatter your comfortable little delusion. You think you're struggling because life dealt you a bad hand? You think people are just naturally luckier than you? Bullshit. The harsh truth is that most of your problems aren't happening to you, they're happening because of you. And the biggest reason? You've turned victimhood into your personal brand, your comfort zone, your goddamned identity. Here's what nobody wants to tell you. Playing victim is the most dangerous addiction you can develop. It's more toxic than any drug because it doesn't just destroy your body, it destroys your soul, your potential, and every chance you have at genuine success. And the worst part? You're doing it on purpose. The victim drug. Why you're hooked on helplessness. Let me paint you a picture of the modern victim. They walk into every room with their sob story ready to deploy like a weapon. Bad breakup? It's because their ex was a narcissist. Didn't get the promotion? Office politics and favoritism. Can't lose weight? Bad genetics and slow metabolism. House is a mess? Depression and lack of time. Every single problem has an external cause, and every single solution is someone else's responsibility. This isn't strength. This is the weakest shit imaginable. You've essentially announced to the world that you have zero control over your own life. You've handed over your power to circumstances, other people, and pure chance. And then you wonder why nothing ever changes. The victim mentality is crack cocaine for your ego. It gives you an instant hit of moral superiority without requiring any actual effort. You get to be the hero of your own tragic story, with villains to blame and an audience to pity you. It's addictive because it feels good in the moment, but like any addiction, it's slowly killing everything that matters about you. The manipulation game. How you train others to enable your weakness. Here's the dirty secret about professional victims. They're actually master manipulators. You might not realize it consciously, but every time you launch into your victim narrative, you're running a con game on everyone around you. You're training people to treat you like a fragile little flower who can't handle reality. Think about it. When you constantly complain about how unfair life is, what happens? People stop giving you real feedback. They stop challenging you to grow. They start walking on eggshells around you, afraid to suggest that maybe, just maybe, you could take some responsibility for your situation. You've essentially manipulated everyone into becoming enablers of your weakness. The victim card is the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. Didn't follow through on your commitments? I've been dealing with so much lately. Didn't put in the effort? I'm going through a really tough time. Failed to show up for people who matter? You don't understand what I'm going through. Every excuse is bulletproof, because who wants to be the asshole who attacks someone who's already down? But here's what you're really doing. You're training the world to have zero expectations of you. And guess what happens to people with zero expectations placed on them? They meet those expectations perfectly. You become exactly as worthless as everyone expects you to be. The predator's paradise. Why victims attract victimizers. Want to know something that'll make your skin crawl? Actual predators, the real manipulators, narcissists, and users of the world can spot a professional victim from across a crowded room. You might as well be wearing a neon sign that says, "Easy target here." Why? because people with victim mentalities are the perfect prey. You're already convinced that bad things just happen to you through no fault of your own. You're already trained to accept mistreatment as normal. You're already programmed to make excuses for other people's shitty behavior while blaming yourself for not being good enough to deserve better. The cruel irony is that by playing victim to avoid responsibility, you actually attract the exact people who will victimize you for real. It's like wearing a kick me sign and then wondering why people keep kicking you. You've advertised your weakness, your lack of boundaries, and your willingness to accept blame for things that aren't your fault. Real predators love victims because victims do half the work for them. They don't have to break down your defenses. You've already torn them down yourself. They don't have to convince you that you're worthless. You already believe it. They don't have to isolate you from people who might help. You've already pushed away anyone who challenges your victim narrative. The self-sabotage cycle, how you guarantee your own failure. Professional victims are masters of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. It's almost supernatural how they can take a good situation and find ways to fuck it up. Job interview going well? Time to mention how the last boss was unfair. Relationship getting serious? Perfect moment to dump all your trauma and damage on your partner. Making progress on a goal? Better find reasons why you'll probably fail anyway.
This isn't coincidence. It's self-sabotage, and it serves a purpose. If you succeed, you lose your victim identity. If things go well, you can't blame external factors anymore. If you actually achieve something, you might have to acknowledge that you have more control over your life than you've been pretending. And that's terrifying for someone who's built their entire identity around being powerless. The victim mindset is essentially a protection racket you're running on yourself. You sabotage your own success to protect yourself from the responsibility that comes with it. You choose familiar misery over unfamiliar possibility because at least misery doesn't challenge your worldview. But here's the price you pay. You become unemployable, unlovable, and unfulfilled. Nobody wants to invest in someone who's constantly explaining why things won't work. Nobody wants to build a life with someone who treats every setback like the end of the world. Nobody wants to be around someone whose default response to any challenge is to curl up in a ball and cry about how unfair everything is. The attention economy. How you confuse pity with love. One of the most pathetic aspects of victim mentality is how it perverts your understanding of human connection. You start to believe that the only way to get attention and care from others is through your pain. You mistake pity for love, sympathy for respect, and enabling for support. This creates a twisted incentive structure where you unconsciously seek out problems, drama, and conflict because they generate the emotional response you're craving. You become addicted to the rush of having people rally around you, comfort you, and tell you that it's not your fault. But this isn't genuine connection. It's emotional vampirism. Real relationships are built on mutual respect, shared growth, and reciprocal support. But when you're stuck in victim mode, you're constantly taking emotional energy without giving anything back. You're always the one in crisis, always the one who needs saving, always the one whose problems are more urgent than everyone else's. Eventually, people get exhausted. They start to recognize the pattern. Every conversation becomes about your latest drama. Every interaction revolves around your needs. Every solution gets shot down because you're more invested in the problem than the fix. The people with healthy boundaries start to distance themselves, leaving you surrounded by either fellow victims or people who benefit from keeping you weak.
The reality check, taking your power back. Here's the part where I stop being your friendly neighborhood asshole and start telling you how to unfuck your life. The first step is the hardest. You have to admit that you've been choosing to be a victim. Not that bad things haven't happened to you, they probably have, but that you've been using those experiences as an excuse to avoid taking control of your life. Stop looking for validation that your victim story is true. It doesn't matter if it's true. What matters is whether it's useful. And I guarantee you that your victim narrative is the least useful story you could possibly tell about your life. It's the story that keeps you stuck, keeps you weak, and keeps you waiting for someone else to save you. Start by taking responsibility for just one small thing in your life. Not everything, that's too overwhelming and you'll use it as another excuse to give up. Just one thing. Maybe it's keeping your living space clean. Maybe it's following through on commitments you make to yourself. Maybe it's stopping yourself from launching into your victim story when someone asks how you're doing. The goal isn't to pretend that life is fair or that bad things don't happen. The goal is to reclaim your agency, to remember that even when you can't control what happens to you, you can always control how you respond. To stop giving away your power to circumstances, other people, and the past. The harsh truth about change. Nobody's coming to save you. The government isn't going to fix your problems. Your family isn't going to magically become supportive. Your boss isn't going to suddenly recognize your worth. That perfect partner isn't going to show up and complete you. The world isn't going to become fair. People aren't going to become nicer, and life isn't going to get easier. This isn't pessimism, it's liberation. Once you accept that nobody's coming to save you, you can stop waiting and start doing. You can stop explaining why things won't work and start figuring out how to make them work. You can stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the author of your story. The people who succeed in life aren't the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who stopped making excuses and started making moves. They're the ones who decided that their future was more important than their past. They're the ones who chose to be victors instead of victims. The choice is yours. You can keep playing the victim, keep blaming everyone and everything else for your problems, and keep wondering why nothing ever changes. Or you can grow the fuck up, take responsibility for your life, and start creating the future you actually want instead of the one you're afraid of. What's it gonna be?